What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the Tomatolito Show. And we got ourselves an awesome fight weekend. And the big headliner of Saturday night, December 19th, is going to be none other than Saul El Canelo Alvarez versus Callum Smith. Mundo. Callum Smith, meaning the world. Callum Smith, the older brother of Liam Smith. Liam Smith, a fighter who ended up facing Canelo Alvarez a few years back. So he's got that experience. Callum Smith, English fighter. He is the who's who right now of the 168 division, of the super middleweight division. Canelo Alvarez going up from middleweight. He went up as high as 175, challenged Kovalev, and now he's gonna be going up to 168, dropping down from the 175, but still going up above his middleweight limit or his middleweight division to 168 at super middleweight. He had already fought Rocky Fielding there, and now he's going to be fighting Callum Smith. Big fight this weekend. Why is it such a big fight? Let's break down the two fighters, right? Like I said, Callum Smith, older brother of Liam Smith. Canelo fought Liam Smith back in 2016 in the big September weekend, the Mexican Independence weekend, September of 2016. He ends up knocking out Liam Smith and retains the 154 title. That was back when Canelo was fighting at 154 in one of the last few fights that he had at 154, and that was for the WBO title back then. Let's look at these two fighters, right? I'm excited to get into this. Callum Smith, as an amateur, had 19 bouts. As far as I've been able, and depending on your resource, right, or your source that you go to, I've been able to track down 19 fights. He had a 12-7 record as an amateur. Here we go. As far as pro, he is solid. And I'm getting my papers here mixed up. But as a pro, undefeated, right? So look at how it transitioned from his amateur days to the pro level. A lot of fighters struggle with that. A lot of fighters struggle with the point system in the amateurs, and they end up transitioning just fine because they're able to transition and fight in a different style and put their fight game together differently than how they have to adjust their boxing and their game in the amateur level. So they transitioned well for Callum Smith. 27-0, 19 victories by way of knockout, and he is the current WBA super champion at 168. And he has the Lineal Championship. He has the Ring Magazine Championship at 168 as well. So he's beat some of the notable names. English fighter John Ryder, he's a very popular name in England. Hasn't hit the world stage yet. If you're a hardcore boxing fan, you'll recognize it. Maybe some casual fans, right? But more of a local following for John Ryder. John Ryder was one of his toughest opponents that he had to date. That was for the WBC Diamond super middleweight title. So 168, the WBC gave him that Diamond title, put it on the line for that fight against John Ryder. And then of course the WBA, the super middleweight championship for the super champion. So those two titles were on the line. Callum Smith ends up winning that fight by unanimous decision. A lot of fight fans are comparing the Callum Smith Canelo Alvarez fight to that fight because of the height difference, and it almost looks like John Ryder, similar height to Canelo Alvarez and similar height difference. Yet John Ryder had a lot of success against Callum Smith in that fight, and of course took it all the way to a decision to end the fight. Right, so people are using or thinking that that's the way, that's the format, that's the way the Canelo should approach the fight. Of course, Canelo, completely different fighter than John Ryder, and you're gonna see how his flow of style. He's more of a body snatcher, definitely a heavy puncher, power puncher, puts his combinations together very well, and good at countering punches. He's a very effective counter puncher, Canelo is. So we'll see how this matches, and that's why this match is so intriguing that we get Saturday night. Some of the other notable opponents that Callum Smith has had, Hassam Endam, that's another one. George Groves, another notable fighter. Other than that, Eric Skoglund, Nicky Holson, that's another good fighter. 26-0 when he ended up fighting Callum Smith. So Nicky Holson, Eric Skoglund, and other than that, Rocky Fielding, he ended up TKOing Rocky Fielding as well. And Rocky Fielding was 21-0 at that time. They ended up fighting for a local British super middleweight title in that fight, and the silver championship in the WBC. So, listen, he's had a solid super middleweight ascension in his career, and it transitioned very well from his amateur days. He's a solid opponent, and he's a who's who right now. He's the man to beat at 168. You have Benavidez, you have Caleb Plant, you have numerous other fighters, Danny Jacobs going up to the 168, BJ Saunders in the 168. So he's got the WBA title. So you got a lot of opposition, a lot of good names, a lot to do in this 168 division. Callum Smith is the man to beat at 168 because of that lineal championship that he holds. So this is not a underdog type fight, or this is not a promotional job that we're being sold, much like the Sarameta Golovkin fight, much like, I mean, you name it. Time and time again, fight fans are often disappointed because they're like, here we go again. Look at who they're putting them against. Yet they're selling them as they're such an amazing champion, and they're not looking to face the top opposition. So this is not that fight. This is awesome for Callum Smith. He holds the throne. If he defends the throne, which is the right thing to do, which is what he's supposed to do, this is his division. He's supposed to beat Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez trying to move up to 168 and take ownership of this other division. Callum Smith is supposed to defend this throne. He's not the underdog. This is his weight division. He's supposed to beat Canelo. And if he makes it look easy, guess what? That's it. He's the man to beat at 168. Canelo will go back to 160, defend those titles that he has claim to. Awesome that Canelo's moving up and challenging these other champions and these other fighters in other divisions as well. So that's the commendable thing for him. Callum Smith, 27-0, 19 knockouts, a lot of power, a lot of height, and a lot of reach on his end. Decent boxing on his end. Saul El Canelo Alvarez, we're a lot more familiar with, and let's look at his record. He's got titles at 160. He's got titles. I mean, obviously he vacated the title. I don't think he's hanging on to that title from the Kovalev fight. I'm pretty sure he vacated that title. But let's take a look at his record. Stands right now at 53 wins. 1 loss, and that 1 loss is to none other than Floyd Mayweather. 2 draws in his career, one of them against Golovkin, and then 36 knockouts. So 36 of those 53 victories by way of knockout, and he's got titles across multiple divisions right now. Last fight, of course, at 175 against Sergey Kovalev. And then before Kovalev, Danny Jacobs, awesome fight that he had against Danny Jacobs. That was at 160. Rocky Fielding was at 168, super middleweight, like I said. Who else? Golovkin was right before that. Golovkin back-to-back, right? Golovkin win, the Golovkin draw. Then Chavez, which was a big Mexican showdown that was supposed to be the big Mexican showdown and turned out to be somewhat of a dud, right? A one-sided affair. Liam Smith was right before Chavez, and that was Callum Smith's younger brother, and that was his last fight at 154 as super welterweight. So he knocks out Liam Smith. This fight has the storyline of a champion, a ring champion, the man at 160 moving up to face the man at 168. It has a storyline of revenge from Callum Smith's end, trying to avenge his brother's loss to this champion. You name it, story's going to be made. The WBC throws their hat into the running here into this match, and they want to throw their title now, since their championship is vacant at the moment at 168. They're throwing their title in the 168 championship, and they want claim to this fight, and they're like, whoever wins this fight is also going to be our WBC 168 champion. So now you have the WBA championship on the line, you have the WBC championship on the line, and you have the Lineal championship on the line for 168. Canelo moving up to challenge. Canelo wins this fight, he will be the super champion of the WBA for 2 divisions. 160, 168, he will be the lineal champion in 2 divisions, at middleweight and super middleweight. He holds the WBC franchise title at 160, and he will have the WBC Super-Middleweight Championship at 168. That is a career-defining moment, and he is quickly, if he's able to succeed this Saturday night against Callum Smith, he will quickly be placed into those conversations as one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time, which he is in those talks already. But this will definitely cement by accomplishments, by the resume, by fighting the who's who of these divisions. He will go down as one of the greats, if not getting close to surpassing who everybody claims to be the greatest Mexican champion of all time, Julio Cesar Chavez. Canelo's making that debate now. Similar to how you hear in other sports, the LeBron, Michael Jordan, the Kobe, LeBron, Michael Jordan. Right now seems to be like LeBron is in the running to be the GOAT in basketball. And Tom Brady, obviously there's no arguing there in the NFL, but you've always heard the arguments of Peyton Manning and you name it, right? Like that type of argument is what we're getting here for Mexican fight fans. That Canelo is quickly, if he's able to succeed, how do you deny him being one of the greatest champions of all time, if not the greatest champion ever of Mexican boxing history? So he's quickly getting his foot into that ladder debate, the ladder that I mentioned. So awesome fight. A lot on the line. The storyline is there. How do you see this fight playing out? What's the most obvious thing that we notice? The height difference. You have between the two, they're listing Canelo at 5'8", and they're listing Callum Smith at 6'3". So that's a huge height difference. Now, the reach is another thing. 78-inch reach for Callum Smith is what they're measuring, what they're reporting. And you got a 70-inch reach, 70.5-inch reach for Canelo. So an 8-inch reach advantage for Callum Smith. And you got six inches, right? 5'10", 5'11", yep. So you got 6 inches. So 6-inch height difference for Callum Smith, 8-inch reach. And then in weight, obviously when they rehydrate, Canelo ends up rehydrating quite well, but I think he'll be pushing maybe about 170 of that. Callum Smith maybe getting close to 190 by the time that he steps into the ring, and they're fully rehydrated. So a bigger man, just like Kovalev, just like Rocky Fielding, bigger bodies, bigger frames, bigger men, which is going to be a lot more work for Canelo to chop that tree down. How do I see the fight playing? I think Callum Smith, his boxing is not as good as Canelo's boxing. Nonetheless, it's not bad. He's got decent boxing. If he's able to stay within the game plan, and I believe the game plan of the Callum Smith team is going to be to keep him at bay, which is obvious, right? Because of your reach and your height, keep Canelo at bay. Jab him, punch him, keep him at bay, keep him trying to get into that pocket. You back him up whenever he gets too close into compromising that pocket, that distance. And by keeping him at bay, hopefully you're able to outbox him, outscore him, and get the decision that way. Callum Smith is not that type of fighter. If you look at him, that's not a traditional fight style for Callum Smith. He's more of a power puncher, and he likes to take it to his opponents. He likes to come forward. He likes to bang with the opponents, and he cuts up a lot of his opponents, and they're bloody fights quite often. If he gets into that type of brawl with Canelo, just think about the two styles. Canelo loves to hit to the body. That's actually how he eliminated his brother, with the hard body shot, to where his brother's rolling on the ground with his knees up, couldn't breathe, couldn't get up, couldn't answer the count. Canelo chops the trees down, especially when they're taller. That body, if he's able to get into that pocket, and he will get into the pocket, it's just a matter of how often he'll be able to do it and how effective he'll be when he compromises that distance. When Canelo gets in, and he will get in because his boxing, his punching's a little bit crisper than Then Smith's, he's going to get into that pocket. He's going to hit the body. How effective he's going to make and how he's going to utilize each one of these opportunities is the questions that we have to that we need answered, right? And that's coming by way of watching the fight. You could stipulate and you could think and try to break this down as much as possible, but we obviously got to get to the point to watch the fight. That's how I see that Canelo, he's going to have success by getting into the body, the longer Callum Smith, longer bodied Callum Smith, lankier Callum Smith. His body is where I see him losing the fight. Canelo hits hard, and Callum Smith's a skinny guy, very fit, but skinny guy, skinny trunk on him to where Canelo's going to try to chop that tree down. And that's the best approach, right? The height difference is crazy. If you haven't seen it, look at these images, look at the face-offs, look at the weigh-in. The fight, the height difference is crazy to me. The reach is crazy to me. Callum Smith has really long arms. At 78 inches almost looks like it's 90 inches. If he's able to utilize his reach, his punching, and keep Canelo at bay all night and punish Canelo from a distance, you're gonna be fine. Callum Smith is gonna defend that throne at 168. Doing so is easy. At least saying so is easy. Doing so is going to be the hard part, right? Thinking that this is the game plan, and to affect this game plan accurately and effectively, it's going to be the hard part, right? You could think it, you could strategize, you could do whatever you want, right? You draw it out. This is the way to beat them. Perfect. Putting it to effect, putting it into action is going to be the hard part. Keeping Canelo at bay is going to be the hard part. Canelo is going to get in. He's going to get in. And the other thing that Canelo does well, a lot of his combinations start from the body up. He's able to chop the tree and comes up and finishes his combinations on the upside with uppercuts or overhands. And those power shots is usually what gets these opponents out of there, just like James Kirkland. Now, he had success against Golovkin as well, where he bangs to the body and finishes his punches up high. This is Canelo's style. He's a big, heavy, strong puncher. He's stronger and more of a solid fighter, better boxer than the version that faced Callum Smith's brother at 154. He's a more complete fighter today. I see this fight coming down to the wire, and I think Canelo is going to stop Callum Smith. He's going to cut up Callum Smith. I think Canelo gets bruised up and possibly cut up on this fight as well because of that long jab. If Callum Smith's going to dictate the pace early, I think Canelo bleeds in this fight. He's going to get cut up on the brow. I think Callum Smith is going to be bleeding as well in this fight, and I see Canelo putting the stop to this fight towards the latter part of the fight. I say somewhere around between the 9th and the 12th round, I think Canelo's going to stop him. Similar to what he did to his brother. Durable fighter. I don't see this fight going to the decision. I really don't. I don't see this fight going to decision just because Callum Smith is not that type of fighter. He's going to be able to hold and box for as long as his boxing doesn't betray him. But he loves to bang. He loves to go forward. And the moment that he gets hurt, or if he thinks that, and there is going to be a crowd also. So think about this. This is a different style than what they're accustomed to seeing here this year with other fights where it's been quiet. It's a different feel. Not the 100,000, not the packed arena, but there is going to be a crowd. So the fact that there's going to be an attendance, it's bound to be a heavy attendance showing for Canelo more so than Callum Smith out of the amount of fans that they'll be able to allow there. So just think about that. That stuff's going to take an effect, and it's going to affect this fight. All of that's going to have some bearing into this fight. Callum Smith is not that type of fighter. He's not your solid boxer, stay outside and box and keep your distance. When he feels threatened or pressured, he comes forward and he wants to bang out with these fighters. And even in interviews where they tell him, where do you see this fight? Where's the downfall for you in this fight? And he says, what I don't want to do is bang out with Canelo. But how do you hold off from doing that? And he's right. because he's been able to do it to other fighters. And because he's done it to other fighters in the past, he's gotten himself to this stature in boxing as the man to beat at 168. So he knows his style, and it's worked because he's got power, because he's able to cut up opponents, because he's able to push opponents back. So of course, the confidence is in his side, and the size difference, and this is his division to defend. So of course, if Canelo wants to bang, he's going to bang out with them. I think Canelo stops Callum Smith. And I hope I'm not speaking as more of the fan side, but I really believe that the body's going to be the key. I know Canelo's going to get in, and I know Callum's going to have success with the reach and with his height, but I think whenever it gets in close, if Callum's not able to control him by way of clinch and push him back out, Canelo's going to get into that trunk and he's going to chop down the height of Callum Smith. It's just the way that I'm analyzing the fight. Nonetheless, what are we supposed to see? Callum Smith is the man at 168. He's supposed to defend that throne. That's the right thing that's supposed to happen, right? And Canelo goes back down to 160. He defends his throne at 160 or gets defeated, right? And gets beat. But challenging up, big brother, little brother, that big brother's supposed to hold his ground, right? Where we get the headlines, where we get the excitement is in the upsets, right? In boxing. And when we see the upsets, when we see history being made, when we see this guy is not supposed to win, yet he did it. He overcame the obstacle. That's the excitement behind the fight game and behind boxing, and why boxing history is some of the greatest history that you could ever read on as far as sports related history goes. So with that, enjoy the fight, guys. Surround yourself with good company, have yourself a good drink. I will be cheering from afar. I'm out in Florida at the moment, in Altamont Springs, nonetheless, surrounded by my family, surrounded by loved ones. I will have some good scotch in my glass, and I will cheers from Florida to whatever you happen to be watching the fight, whether it's out there in France or Russia or elsewhere in the United States or in Mexico. Listen, I hear you fans. I see you guys. Thank you guys for following the show, and salute to you. Enjoy the fight. What a great fight weekend. And we'll talk soon on the recap show. Take care.